I needed my haircut really, really bad yesterday. And I just moved here in Murrayville. And I was like, I wasn't feeling, what's the word? Confident.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to find a good barbershop near me. And so I did what everybody does. And I typed in barbershop near me on Google. I never look at the sponsored ones.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at highest rated in most Google reviews. You know who's up there?
Yeah, that would probably be us. We worked really hard to maintain that 5-star rating.
Yeah.
There are a couple of 1-star reviews.
Sure.
But every time that happens, I just get real hot and heavy on the customers. I'm like, hey, we need Google reviews. I always say, can you leave us an honest 5-star review?
Yeah. Well, that's what happened with me.
Yeah.
You know, I'll share my experience. I didn't do a 5-star review yet, but you asked me to share experience. I'll share my experience with your shop here live.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I walk in, you're on the right-hand side. And I kind of nod at you and you nod at me, but you've got a customer with you and you're talking to them, right? And I walk to the back and can't remember his name yet, but he's going to be my barber. What's his name?
Brad. Some people call him Brad. Some people call him Connor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he stands up and he's like, hey, how are you, man? And I said, I'm stressed. I don't feel good. I don't feel confident. And he's like, well, sit in the chair. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
So I immediately felt better from walking in, right? And I see everything that I look for in a barbershop. I see cool stuff all over the wall. It's almost like I get transported, similar to headphone land, like transported to a different realm where I feel safe. You know, because a barbershop to me is someplace that I can go that I can kind of be like, relax for 30 minutes, you know, and not have to worry about, you know, I don't know. I can just talk to whoever, you know. Some lady walked in and they're talking about her dog passing away. And like, I've got my little dog here. So we were connecting about that. And he was talking about it. And she was like, how do I know you? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you owe me money or something. We were just joshing with each other. And it was a really good experience. I think it was maybe 20, 30 minutes is how long the haircut took. I didn't even remember the price because I told the guy, I said, I'm just going to give you whatever money's in my pocket. So I think the haircut was like $25, but
yeah, 25.
Yeah, I paid him 60.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he was grateful for that.
Yeah, but there's this, and I think you talk about it. I didn't get to listen to your podcast yet, but I think that's kind of what your podcast is going to be about like that customer experience walking into a barbershop and how to get a higher, you know, that clientele that continues to come back.
Yeah, that's definitely been the focus this year. We had a competitor move in less than a quarter mile away, and this is their third barbershop. And both myself and one of my barbers used to work at that barbershop and at his main location. And so when I went off on my own, you know, my shop was the only shop in our part of town.
Sure.
And over the last couple of years, it started out with just myself, and now there's 3 of us in there.
Wow.
And you kind of get into these lulls where you kind of just start to experience burnout. And once I found out that I had a competitor moving in, it was kind of like a wake up call because, you know, now we really have to make sure that we're on our P's and Q's, because if they don't like what we do, they can just go less than a minute down the road and get a haircut at our competitor. And so when we found out they were moving in, I told my barbers, I said, listen, we need to focus on the fundamentals. We need to give good haircuts, a clean shop, good music, good vibe, good atmosphere. And most of all, we need to make sure that these men know that they're appreciated when they come into our shop. You know, this is, I think I spoke with you about this yesterday, how there are not very many places in the world that a man can go and just be taken care of.
Yeah.
You know, so the barbershop is one of those last stands for men where you can come in, you know, the wife can be put on silent for a little while, the kids, the bills, the boss, and you could just sit down and no one's demanding anything from you and you just get taken care of. And so I think as long as we maintain that sort of mindset in regard to the way we run things and the way we interact with our customers, you know, competition is, healthy competition. It's a good thing, but I think we'll be okay. You know?
Well, for me, it's never been competition. It's always been collaboration. I know it sounds weird, but you know, in the life insurance space or the insurance space, there's how many other agencies?
Yeah.
Right. But what separates me from every other insurance agency is just me and the care that I put into what I do and the agencies that I work with, the other agents or agencies that I work with. Like you met Sean.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of my right-hand guys.
Well, I've heard this, I think it's called the unique selling proposition, where what makes you different from the competitors. And so even with our competition and other shops, they all have a set of things to offer, from the atmosphere to the type of entertainment that's happening in the shop. You walk into some of these barbershops and they have TVs all over the walls, and there's not a lot of conversation happening. So every shop is not for everybody, and every barber's not for everybody.
That's right.
So you have a unique set of skills and a unique set of
the way that I interact with people.
Exactly. You're not going to interact well with everyone.
That's right.
But the people that you do interact well with, they're going to be your customers, and you're not going to have to fake anything in order to keep them, because they like you for you.
Authenticity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I didn't ask this yesterday because I was in a little bit of a rush because I had another call, but I was like, I just have to go get a haircut. I feel like I said, I was feeling like so unconfident. I walked in with my hat on, I was in my lounge wear because I work from home.
Yeah.
I was like, just not feeling myself. I felt like $1 million when I walked out of there, by the way, just so you know.
Well, that's the goal.
That's the 5-star review. I felt like $1 million by the time I walked out of your shop. 30 minutes in and out. And the other thing that I really found awesome about your place is it said walk-ins available. I think it's kind of like this thing that so many places think that they need to have appointments only to be successful. And like, while that does help, just going, okay, I can probably walk in and get a haircut. It might take me a little bit longer, but I can talk with the people. I'm going to the barbershop and go talk with them, and I'll get my haircut. That was another reason that I went.
Yeah, well, that goes back into your unique selling proposition again, because you have shops that are appointment only, you have shops that are walk-in only, and then you have shops who do a blend of both. And I do appointments before we open a couple days a week, because I have some clients who want an appointment. But the shop that I run has been there for 24 years, and it was a walk-in only shop for 22 years before I purchased it.
Right.
And so you have a lot of old school clientele. You got a lot of just salt of the earth, regular working men that come in there and get haircuts. You got a lot of retirees, a lot of much older guys, because the guy that I bought the shop from, he actually cut hair in Wilmington for 67 years.
Wow.
And so we have several generations of people coming into our shop. And I'm not going to sit here and force these old guys to download an app and teach them how to make an appointment. Their haircut takes me 15 minutes. I can get them out of there in 8 minutes, but I milk it a little bit so they don't feel like they're being rushed out,
Right.
But, so some people, they like being the appointment only. They like kind of having to be able to see exactly what kind of haircuts are coming in and who's coming into the shop that day. And for us, it's more like a grind. Let's just get in there and cut this hair, and we don't have to be, we don't have to.
Sometimes you don't have to rush if you don't have appointments sometimes, because, and I saw it happen the previous one I was going to. It was like every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was like, how fast can I get the next person in and out, in and out, in and out? And then sometimes I felt rushed.
Yeah.
I felt like, all right, you're in. Let me get you real quick. And I was like, well, I just wanted to, I'm here for my haircut.
Yeah.
But I just, I know this sounds weird, but I love hanging out with my barber and getting to know my barber. There's like a sacred, weird relationship. The other barber is kind of like I hadn't seen you in 2 weeks, man. What's been going on? You catch up with your barber. What happened here? What happened here? What happened here? And it's something that my father taught me. Like, every 2 weeks, my dad would take me to the barber shop in Lexington, South Carolina, and there was 12 chairs.
Yeah.
And everybody, every Saturday, it was just like, everybody went to the barber shop, man. And they had something for everybody.
Well, I think one of the problems with the appointment only model is that, and the thing is, what works for you works for you. So like I said, some people are really into doing the appointment only thing, but one thing that's nice about having a walk-in shop is you have several people in there at the same time. And so I think it's more conducive to conversation and that old school barbershop feel, you know, because in an appointment only shop, a lot of time there might be one or two people waiting, but it's not that same social, hey, we're all waiting and it's next up, you know, and while we're waiting, we're dialoguing and, you know, cracking jokes and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, we as a culture and society, there's been such a departure from face-to-face human interaction because of social media and people working from home and working over Zoom and all this stuff. And the old school walk-in only barbershop is one of those last staples or last stands for community, you know?
Yeah.
And I know there are other things out there like restaurants and bars and stuff, but the barbershop is truly unique in that it's generally men only, and it's like an old school American experience. You know, it's an American institution.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny you say that. I said the same thing about insurance too. Is like a lot of the insurance that we sell is called final expense insurance. So I'm talking to senior citizens about funerals all day long. Weird thing to talk about for a 34-year-old to talk to a 70-year-old and go, hey man, you're going to pass away.
Yeah.
You needed this policy. Like really weird, right? Because of COVID, everybody rushed to the phones and started doing it over the phone. And it worked great. But something happened over the last year because of AI, because of everybody going to the phones, that senior citizens, and I'm like an old school insurance agent, like I'll make my own leads. I spend money on Facebook, generate my own leads and go. I try calling the people, but senior citizens don't trust people over the phone anymore because so many people went to the phones. Yeah. And they quit answering the phones.
And they're always getting calls.
They're always getting
spam.
100%. Yep. They're trying to sell them something that they don't need.
Yeah.
You know? And so when I knock on the door and it's just me, I look exactly how I look now.
Yeah.
And they go, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Matthew. You filled out the form about some final expense insurance or some insurance. They're like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, I tried calling you, but you're like most people. You don't answer numbers you don't know. They're like, oh, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Come on in. And there's a crave right now for social interaction, for human to human, just chatting.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Just knowing that there's other real people out in the world. And like, if there's something that was missed over the last 6 to 8 months, I think that there's a huge bell curve for getting back into that.
Yeah.
And
the true human connection.
True.
Yeah.
And barbering is one of those true human connections that you just can't get anywhere else.
For sure. Yeah. When I got into barbering, I thought to myself, one of the thoughts that I had was, as long as there's people, I can work. You know, because there's not, I don't think we want to have AI robots cutting our hair.
No.
You know, they might perfect that technology someday, but I don't think that's going to come anytime soon. So, like I said, I can work anywhere in the world, and as long as there are people, I can cut hair. So it's job security.
Do you do razor shaves as well?
We do, yes. I hate doing the luxury shaves, honestly.
Really? Just because it takes time?
It takes time, and I charge I charge $35 for a luxury shave. Some shops will charge $50 to $100 for a luxury shave. We're more on the edge of town, more just like I said, salt of the earth type clientele. So I'm not going to price gouge these people.
Right.
But I don't really enjoy doing them. But when I do them, I try to give it my all.
Yeah, there's a and that's what I love about it. Like there's a care that like you lean back and you get the warm.
Yeah.
You know,
I break out the massager, all that stuff. You know, I do like 2 to 3 hot towels. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think that there's not a lot of guys who get them now, straight razor shaves, but it'll be like one of those things where I won't do one for 3 weeks and then I'll do like 6 in a week. You know? But it's just it's a good tool in your tool belt to be able to do those, and it's good to offer it. But I don't do a whole lot of them.
Well, I think if I could stand for anybody, and I know you don't like doing these, but if you go get if you've never experienced a straight razor shave, as a man, it's something that you should experience.
Yeah.
It's a completely different shaving. Like, I've been shaving my own beard for years, right? And I'm horrible at it. But like something about laying back and like just really getting it's the best feeling.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling. You feel like it's like you said, it's the only time where it's just about you for a little bit.
Yeah.
You pay a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Right. I'll pay the $35-$40, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just for 30 minutes, I was able to go from here working on insurance and signing paperwork and, paying bills and blah, 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 to just, I'm in this really cool spot.
Yeah.
No one knows who I am.
Yep.
They don't care who I am. I'm just another normal dude.
Yep.
Right. And we just hung out. And then I left there and I felt super confident. I was like, oh, this is what I've been craving. And I've been here for like 2 or 3 months and just hadn't got my haircut because I was like, I need to find that right fit, that right barbershop.
Well, I'm glad you came in and gave us a shot, man. We our city's growing. We rapidly, and we get a lot of new people. And
I think the side of town's growing pretty big
too.
Absolutely.
There's houses going up all over the place and apartments, and that's why we were the only barbershop on this side of town, and then we've had 2 barbershops open up in our vicinity, and I haven't seen a decrease in business. As a matter of fact, this new shop, our competitor opened up, and these have been 2 of the best weeks that we've ever had. So, obviously it'll take time for people to know that they're there, but there are so many people, there's so many heads to cut. And I think that's another reason why, that's another thing that makes us different is we kind of have a hands-off approach on our clients. If someone leaves our shop to go work somewhere else and people ask where they are, I will tell them where they are. But not every barbershop operates in that way.
Right.
And in some shops, they look at those clients as shop clients. And a lot of them are shop clients. But I want the client to be happy. And if they are happiest with the barber who's no longer with us, I want them to go be with them. That way they can be happy. And somebody who wants to be in my chair will be in my chair and be happy in my chair. There's no ownership.
No one owns the client.
If somebody wants to go to another barbershop, that's not on the client. That's on you.
Right.
You and your barbers. You basically want to make yourself indispensable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. If somebody wants to go get their haircut somewhere else, that's because you weren't doing it for them. And so get better. And
follow up. There's a. I don't know, man. I've spent a lot of time in barbershops, obviously getting my hair cut, but I study people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I study anthropology and why do people do what they do, right? And that's kind of what I want to ask you is what got you into barbering? What made you want to open up your own shop? Because you were probably you said you were at another shop, but what made you want to, I don't know if you secured a loan or whatever it was to go buy the business, It's a big risk, right? There's a lot the thought process that goes into that.
Yeah.
And you got to be a pretty interesting dude to want to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how interesting I am, but I do know that barbering is a thing that really saved my life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I mean it in a figurative sense, in the sense that I had really no direction for most of my adult years, 20s and early 30s. I spent some time in the military. I also worked as a salesman selling cars and then guitars at Guitar Center. I painted houses. I worked at a church as a music guy. I was chasing different things, and I tried going down many different paths.
I'm trying to figure it out.
And there were many things that piqued my interest, but once I would get into them, I'd realize it wasn't for me. And I've always been on the creative side of things, graphic design, playing music and stuff like that. And I've always been a very visual person. So I worked as a graphic designer. I worked as a house painter. I was in the military, so that attention to detail factor was in there. And I had been working as a freelance designer for a couple of years and just really hand to mouth, just, trying to get business, trying to get people to pay their invoices.
Sure.
Working with, church. A lot of churches would hire me, and you'd be doing design by committee. So you'd come up with some great concepts for them, and then the little blue-haired old lady who's on the committee doesn't understand this logo or something, and so you're having to educate people on what good design is, and then you're in front of a computer screen all day, and it just became a real grind for me.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend who he's been a barber for I think over 30 years. And I was just griping to him one day about my plight. You know, I'm like, dude, I'm this graphic design thing is not for me. And he said, you should be a barber. You'd be a good barber. And at that time, I just started delving into YouTube and looking up barbers and looking up haircuts and looking up clippers. And I realized that there's actually this whole culture, this whole resurgence of barbering and barbers. And a few weeks after that conversation, I started barber school. And I knew from the beginning that I wanted to have my own shop because I was in my I was 33, 34 years old, and I really had nothing to show for my life. And I thought, well, if I could become a barber and become good enough to make a living and open my own shop in my 30s, that's something. That's an accomplishment. You know,
Right.
I will have a skill, and I will be able to provide a living for my family and own a business. And those are, I feel like that's success in your 30s.
American dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I think another thing too, another motivating factor is pain. You know, I made a lot of bad decisions over the course of my life, or in many different areas, and a lot of it was due to just lack of knowledge and lack of education.
Sure.
Just, you know, you kind of learn the patterns that you see growing up, and you see, you know, around you, and your circle influences you. And
Your parents tell you one thing.
Exactly. And I have great parents. My parents my dad's a really hardworking man, but you know, you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
And I went out into the world after leaving home and just was just a wild man, just up to no good,
Sure.
you know? And
What was that? I call it, for me, and this happened to me very recently.
yeah.
It was what I call the lightning bolt moment. That
Yeah.
just something just hit you and you went, I have to change. Like,
Well,
does that make sense?
Well, I remember being in, I was working as a graphic designer. We were living in Louisville, Kentucky at the time, right outside of Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working as a graphic designer, and I knew I needed to go get a real job, but you know, I could go a week without working or 2 weeks without working, and then I can get a logo project and make $1,500.
Sure.
So it's like, well, I don't want to give that up to go work a job, but then at the same time, I still needed the stability that came with the job.
Sure.
And I just got to the point, we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I was riding dirty. My tags were expired. My license was expired. We were really poor. I mean, just broke, man. And that's where I was going. The pain of that situation was the thing that finally drove me to the point to where I'm like, okay, I'm done touching the hot stove. I need to do something different because what I'm doing is not working. And it was around that time that my buddy suggested barbering to me. And so it kind of was a culmination of things, just our living situation, our financial situation, my mental state, my being fed up with all of the things that I had tried thus far not really working.
Yeah.
And that's what really lit a fire under me. And I got really serious about barbering pretty quickly once I realized, hey. And then another thing that had happened around that time was I went to the barber school and talked with the owner, and he said, hey, you should go talk to one of our alumni who's opened a shop about an hour from here. I think you guys would get along, and you can ask him some questions.
That's good.
And so I drove, and I think that's another important thing when you're getting into anything is you need to find mentors. You need to
100%.
You need to find people who've been there and who are willing to share good knowledge with you.
And I've been hearing the word mentor a lot, and I'll make my stand on this. A mentor to me is not somebody that you have to pay. A mentor to me is somebody who sees something in you, or they see themselves, you and themselves, or whatever that is, and they're like, okay, this guy drove an hour to come talk to me.
Yeah. Yep.
I think I should. I want to make sure that this guy he took an hour. I'm going to take some of my time and make sure to give him the best thing. The things I wish I knew, I'm going to try to collapse his time frames, get him there quicker.
Yeah.
You have to have that mentorship.
Well, I made the trip to Mitchell, Indiana, and it was about an hour, maybe a little over an hour drive. And it was a 2-chair barbershop called the Back Porch Barbershop. And so I went in and introduced. Well, I think I'd messaged him on Instagram before. I was like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about going to the Barber Academy. Marshall told me to reach out to you. Can I come just meet you guys and just ask you some questions?"
Sure.
And so I went and I saw these guys just turning out haircuts, man. And every one that got out of their chair was giving them $25, $30, $25, $30. And they're knocking these cuts out, 20 minutes. And I'm just doing the math in my head,
Right.
I'm like, and so I spent like half a day with those guys, asked them questions. They showed me some different tools and techniques, and that I was sold. This was all happening around the same time. I was just like, this is it.
Yeah, you got ingrained in it really swiftly.
If I'm going to provide for my family the way they deserve to be provided for, barbering is going to be the vehicle that's going to get us there.
Got it.
And it did. We're very blessed, and I'm very grateful.
I'm super proud of you, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
A lot of people, miss their wake up call.
Mm-hmm.
They pass right by it, or they may have felt it, but they didn't do anything with it. And I think the difference between a lot of those people and you is you understood it for what it was, and you drove to it.
Yeah. I think another benefit is, a lot of times we live in an age where people want to put off having a family as long as possible. They want to put off getting married, and they want to wait until they're financially secure to where they're never going to struggle. But for me, I'm the type of person that needed the wife and the kid to put a fire under me, because it's not about you, it's about taking care of them. And so for me, I think one of the greatest contributors to me getting it together in the area of my career is a family. And I see barbers that or guys who want to be barbers come into the industry, and if they don't have any responsibility, it's a lot harder for some of those guys to really dig in and work hard.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget. A couple things happened. I had $111 to my name when I met my wife. That was 6 years ago. Look at all this stuff, dude.
Yeah.
When I found my wife, when she found me, would be a better term. I was like, whoa.
Well, I know this is not a theological podcast, but the Bible says that a man who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. And so with my wife, I had no money in my bank. I think I may have had a couple $1,000s because I had just hit a little.
Right.
I think I may have had a little bit of money because I just did some work because I knew she was coming to see me. And because she was coming from overseas. And that's a whole nother story. But she had all the money and I didn't. But we went through that money. We got married really quickly, and we struggled, for 5-6 years. And anyway, that full circle. But
listen, man, my wife is Romanian.
Yeah.
She came from overseas. I met her. I had $11 in my name. I watched her. She's a teacher, and every year she'd go home to Romania and take all the money that she saved and go help pay her family's bills. And I'll never forget when she was leaving. I was dating her for like 6 months. We were gonna get married. We got married like 9 months after we But I watched her take out $8,000 in cash, and I had never seen that amount of money, just raw cash in my life. I was like, what do you do? She was like, I'm a teacher. I'm like, how do you have that much money? Mind you, I probably made more money in insurance.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand money at the time.
Well, I was listening to, you familiar with Dave Ramsey?
Mm-hmm.
So they did a study on millionaires. It's the biggest study on millionaires and their behavior that's ever been done. Mm-hmm. And he said that that out of the top 10 careers for millionaires, teachers is like number 3. And people are wondering, well, why teachers? Because teachers, it's a well-known fact, they don't get paid well. Mm-hmm. He said, well, the thing with teachers is that they are systems people. They follow a system. They have to follow a system with their curriculum.
Yep.
They're very regimented with their time. Mm-hmm. And so that translates into how they handle their money. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't matter if you make less, if you handle with what you have well.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of our woes are not because we don't make enough money. Our woes are because we don't have any control over the money that's coming in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of a lot of the stuff isn't taught.
Absolutely. And I think that's by design.
It's by design, and it's by failure.
Yeah.
Well, design too.
I mean, if you want to get into the whole public school system and the reason why public schools were created, we could get into that another time.
Listen, man, but, this podcast, just so you know, is my passion project. Yeah. And you brought up theological.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, I have this Serenity prayer around my neck. Like I've gave my life to Christ a long time ago.
Yeah.
I prayed with a lady last night at 9:30. She was having trouble with her business. I'm like, when's the last time you prayed? And she's like, I don't know. It's like, let's do it now.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I love this thing of this podcast is you can talk about whatever you want, but the point of it is I want to highlight who you are and who you are in your business.
Yeah.
Because I care so much about the small business community.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the conglomerate space.
Mm-hmm.
I was spending $500,000 a month on Facebook.
This is like Facebook ads or
Facebook ads.
Yeah.
I know so much about it.
Yeah.
I dropped out of high school twice. I never went to college. I shouldn't know all this stuff. But I found myself competing. I was able to outspend the small business owners.
Yeah.
And so my podcast is to learn about the business owner, learn who they are, give them a voice, showcase theirs, but then give them free marketing tips from a guy that's done it at such the highest level.
Yeah.
So I can teach you how to run Facebook ads. I can teach you how to run Google ads. I can teach you how to do all this stuff. I can teach you how to set up a CRM and, you know, all these automations and blah, blah, blah. That makes your job easier, makes your life easier as a business owner. Because I don't think that stuff's being taught.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's another side. I just mean financial literacy in general.
100%.
You know, it's not taught. And, you know, but I think that, you know, we have my wife's from France, your wife's from Romania.
Oh, nice.
Over there, this whole concept of debt is not really a thing. They might have a mortgage on a house and a loan on a vehicle. Mm-hmm. But in general, people in France, in general, don't spend money that they don't have. Whereas in America, we want everything now.
Sure.
And we charge it, we finance it, we have payments. If we can afford the payments, we think we can afford the thing.
Right.
But that's come from a lack of education, you know,
right.
and all that's been normalized to where if you don't do those things, then you're weird, you know. And I guess my inner Dave Ramsey's coming out.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you have to, I think it applies to small business though, because you have to have a warrior mentality. Mm-hmm. You know, we drive old cars. I could go and get a $700 a month car payment and have the business pay for it. But car is strictly utility for me.
That's right.
This gets me to
from point A to point B and sometimes C.
Exactly. One day when I'm really rolling in it and I can see how the fruits of my labors, I can go out and splurge a little bit and buy a really nice car.
Sure.
But I think to be successful in small business, you kind of have to have that grit in you to say, you know, I'm willing to make some sacrifices and I don't want to overextend myself that way. Because the less money going out, the less stress I have, the more I can focus on being present with my clients.
You move closer to the mic and say that one again. That was good.
Oh man, I don't even remember what I said.
The less.
Oh yeah, the less money that you have going out on car payments and trying to pretend that you're living the high life, the more that you can focus, the more you can be present with your clients. The more you can, the less stress you have. You know, it's like these real estate agents. They call it like bated breath, or what do they call? No,
commission breath.
Commission breath. It
happens in insurance too.
They haven't sold a house in a while, and their bills are coming due, and so they may not be the most. They might not be on their game when it comes to sales or closing deals because they're so desperate. But the more then you have this lifestyle that you want to present that's giving you anxiety and stress, and that's causing you to be desperate because you need more money to keep this illusion alive.
You got it.
And so keep it simple. We drive old cars. We try not to splurge too much, and that helps me be more present in my business. Obviously, don't do it perfectly. No
one does.
Especially my wife being from Europe. That's really our splurge is for her to go see her family.
Sure.
A couple times a year.
Yeah.
But
yeah, my wife likes to travel. She's like,
but if I had two $700 a month car payments, I wouldn't be able to do that at
Right.
all. So
yeah.
anyway, I know we're kind of going in different directions, but I think that
those are fundamentals that
yeah.
business owners, small business owners, need to understand. That just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
they make it too easy.
And I tell this, and I'm a new business owner. I started Murray Marketing, which is my marketing consulting agency. Blah blah blah. Right? I started that in September last year, and then I left my previous company because the new regime came in. We sold for a large sum of cash. Blah 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 blah. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to go do my own thing now.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm out of this. There's this point as a new business owner when money's coming out and money's coming in, but it's the same. It just, what you're making is what you're putting out.
Yeah.
And there's this weird place, and I don't know what to call it. I'm going to call it the Thunderdome. And it's where you're like, is this going to work or not? And if you can just push past that there, just keep your foot on the gas. There's this thing that happens that just, it explodes.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier about pain being a good motivator. You feel the pressure mounting, and what are you going to do? Buckle? Like, you can't buckle.
Yeah.
So you have to go back to the drawing table a little bit and say, okay, what are my priorities? What do I need to be focusing on, and what do I need to cut off to keep this thing going?
Right.
It's like I think some of the is it scarcity breeds ingenuity or something like that? Like, I think some of the best times of growth in my own life is very few of those, but some of the few moments of growth in my life have come from pressure and pain. Sure. And so I think it translates to the business world where you're feeling the pain of like, okay, I'm not really seeing as much profit or much profit at all. And is this thing going to work? And that causes you to to dial it in, and to innovate,
right?
So that you can, and whether it's just something as simple as pressure washing the front of your business and getting the landscaping done and doing a deep clean in your barbershop, always be doing something.
Yeah, giving your shop a haircut.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah, we had a barber. He's no longer at our shop anymore. Shout out to Chuck. But Chuck was he's like a handyman. And so he would come in on the weekends and work, and he'd be trimming the bushes and fixing our lather machines. And, he fixed my washer in the shop, and he, replaced something on my car. And I'm like, man, I really wish I had Chuck still,
Yeah.
But it's good to, that's another thing in business. It's good to surround yourself with people who are good at things that you're not good at.
Yes. Yeah. And pay for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
for
hey,
sure.
You're really good at this and you enjoy this. Yeah, I'm going to pay you this, and I never have to worry about it again.
Exactly.
I'm going to keep up with it.
Yeah.
I got to be enough to be dangerous. But if I don't have to worry about it, I can pay you a little bit, and it's going to help bring more.
Yeah.
That's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you're going to pay for it somewhere.
100%.
We had a sign put up, and it was a couple $1,000, and it was around Christmas time, end of the year, and I had saved up a little nest egg and to do something with it, and we needed a sign out front, and so my dad drove down from Jacksonville. He owns a house painting company, so he has all these ladders. I'm like, oh, we'll just go up there, we'll rip it out, and blah blah blah. We'll put it back in after it's done and save some money. We almost killed ourselves taking that sign out.
Yeah.
And we finally got it down and loaded up. And my dad said, you need to just pay someone to put it back up.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's another $700. But I'd rather pay $700 extra and then lose a limb and not be able to work anymore. You know? So it's just one of those things you have to suck it up, delegate it to someone who can do it right, and focus on cutting hair. That's 100%. How that's where I focus on making the money the way that I make money. And I could pay the guys to do what they do.
Yeah, control your controllables. I can
Absolutely.
control this.
Yeah,
I'm really good at this. Why would I, and someone else, and one of my mentors, I'll call him my mentor, is my colleague in business, if you will, but he just sold this company Medicare business. And he called me one day and was asking me some marketing questions. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm starting in insurance." And he goes, "Are you selling leads?" I'm like, I don't like to be the lead guy, because I was mostly known for spending all the money on Facebook and generating leads, and then going through this whole client experience. And he said, "Let me tell you something. Focus on the prosperity in front of you." What he was saying is, if you're really good at cutting hair, cut hair.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're really good at leads. Your money is right now in leads." He goes, "You have other things that you want to do. I know you want to do your podcast. I know you want to do this, but you need to make money."
Yeah.
And I went, "That's so simple."
Yeah. Without cash flow, you're done.
Right.
You got to keep that money coming in.
Yeah.
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 I think one of the things that I struggle with is always thinking of side hustles. Like, oh man, there's you hear about these people who go viral, and they some new trend, or there's all these 12-year-olds making millions of dollars unboxing toys on YouTube and stuff, and so we live in a culture, we live in this hustle, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a culture of entrepreneurs basically. And so and the entrepreneur in me is always looking for other ways to make money. And it's not a bad thing, but it becomes a problem when it starts to take away from your focus on your primary source of income. And so, I'm always kind of living in that tension, because I want to do other things. And I think a good solution to that for me is to find side hustles that are within my wheelhouse as a barber, whether it be giving classes or, selling product or something, but I just don't, I want to do other things in business, but to your point, I'm not going to be able to do those things well if I don't have what it's in front of me running at the optimum level it should be running.
Here's an idea.
I brought a notebook and a pen.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a couple ideas that I think would be pretty cool for something like this. Maybe this is for another barbershop. I don't know. But there's a lot of there's this movement right now with that entrepreneur mindset. These kids going mega viral, right?
Yeah.
I think you're comfortable enough already speaking. You're already good at being on camera. You're not focused on the camera. You're focused on the conversation. And that's the hardest part for people to get across, to start doing some sort of live streaming. There's a huge, I don't want to call it payday, but there's a huge thing right now where some people are watching other people work in their environment, and this is what I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
But I've got a camera right there that's live streaming the whole thing. I'm in my mode.
Yeah.
I'm even watching radio shows that are on TikTok. I'm watching a radio show on TikTok. They're a radio show for senior citizens listening to country music or whatever this. And they're live streaming themselves working radio. And there's thousands of people watching.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I thought something along those lines, what would be cool is
we got to write that one down.
To put a mic on the client in the chair.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that I know that are like really good at conversation, and just put a mic on them and just chat while I cut their hair.
Yeah.
And just live stream it, Yeah.
And just be like, "Hey, I'm live streaming."
Yeah.
Like, you could just be like, "Hey, I am live streaming."
Yeah.
Did you want to mic up while we cut your hair? You can just talk to the people.
Yeah. The problem is
not everybody wants to be.
And not everyone would be able to focus on the conversation. But I don't know, maybe my clients would surprise me. You know?
It's, you have to be respectful for if people don't like it. And to be honest, there's something about not being on camera.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm so used to this all the time because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I like the barbershop, because it's like, I don't have to worry about it at all. But even if you did it to where there was no sound or there was some kind of music in the background or something.
Yeah.
And it's just you.
Have you heard of
shop.
Haircut Harry?
Mm-mm.
There's a guy on YouTube called Haircut Harry, and he travels the world and gets his hair cut in these different barbershops. And he'll sit down and they'll say, "How do you want it cut?" And he usually says, "Do whatever you want." And they're mic'd up, he's mic'd up, and there might be a little bit of chatter, but it's mostly for the ASMR, for the barbershop sounds, like the trimmer and the clippers and the spray bottles and and it's he has millions of views on his videos.
Oh yeah, there's something called 8D audio. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not heard of 8D audio.
So there's there's one that I'll have to show you. I have some noise canceling headphones. It's crazy. So basically, it's just like that. Mm-hmm. You sit down in a chair, and it's like barbershop. There's one called barbershop.
Yeah.
Put it on, and it feels like because of how loud the sound is, and it goes all around. It's one of those 360 mics. Mm-hmm. And the person gets their haircut, but it's like at the top of their head, and you can feel it on the back of your. And when someone's cutting, you hear it on the right side of your, not the left side of your.
Yeah,
they walk in front of you, they're talking to you. It's a weird experience, but millions of views.
It's interesting that that's a thing because if you want that, just go get your hair cut. Mm-hmm. But I guess you can't have that experience every day, know, unless you go to the barbershop every day.
Right.
People are into some really interesting things these days.
Yeah, ASMR is really taking this weird ramp. But there's opportunities there for you, I think. I think too, like me and you will talk some more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
you're not going to be able to get rid of me, man. Those marketing things you were talking about yesterday sound awesome. So
which ones? Because most of the things I'd say some things I
can't remember. That's why I need to start writing things down because I forget.
Dude, you like most barbers like leather goods, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This is Colonel Littleton
I think
leather.
Most men do, yeah.
This is Colonel Littleton leather, dude. It's some of the finest leather you can buy. So I have all Colonel Littleton leather stuff. Like my wallet's Colonel Littleton leather, and that's like a little pocket.
Yeah.
I carry that around no matter where it go. And I look like a crazy person. Like no one can understand this but me.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm just constantly writing.
My problem is I'll buy notebooks and I'll use them for a day or two, and then I'll leave it in the car but something small like that would be nice because you can just throw it in your pocket.
Yeah, and Sean, who just left.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This was his Christmas gift to me.
I used to use field notes. You ever heard of field notes? And and you could usually find like on eBay or something really nice little leather carriers for field notes.
Yeah.
I should just get back into those because I love field notes.
Colonel Littleton, I'm telling you. Colonel Littleton leather.
Colonel Littleton.
And it's like,
is it COL?
Yeah. Here, it's the whole. Yeah. He's out of Linville, Tennessee, a population of 432 people.
Okay.
And this guy he's exactly the way you imagine him. Whatever you think in your head is exactly how that guy looks. It's crazy.
And he's just an old leathersmith.
That's it, dude. And
That's awesome.
He crushes it. Crushes it. But then I'll be at the airport and I'm at like a lounge and I'm talking to somebody and they're like, "Oh, I'd really like to talk to you." And instead of like pulling up my phone or like the thing I showed you yesterday, like the card, right?
Yeah.
It's like really sleek and all that stuff. Depending on the client, I'm like, "Hey, here's my number. Call me." And they're like,
"Yeah, handwritten."
Because this feels, it's a thicker card.
Yeah,
there's something to that makes you feel like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna just fold this up and put it. I'm gonna really take care of this thing.
Yeah, it's real tactile experience.
You got it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Hey, here's my number. Give me a call anytime." And they're like, "Yeah, I will."
Yeah, it's like a handwritten letter. Who does that anymore?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I write handwritten notes all day long because there's something, like you said, that old school barbershop.
Yeah.
People want to feel
analog. It's analog. It's not. Everything's so digitized now, but that's old school. Pen to paper. Right at your thoughts.
Yeah, it's just
it's
right there. I even thought about, and this is the dumb idea, but like just a penman. Like most people don't even have penmanship. They can't write in cursive.
This is true. They don't teach cursive in schools
They
anymore.
don't teach it. But like some kind of pen pal, like some kind of pen pal system where you old school write notes and you learn how to write cursive again. Dude, people would go bananas for that.
Dude,
we should do that.
When I was in art school, I'm a 2-time art school dropout, but when I was in art school, one of our assignments and projects was to come up with a holiday that hasn't existed yet. So the holiday that I came up with was Write a Letter Day. So it's a day where you have to sit down and write a letter to somebody, like to celebrate, just because we don't do that anymore. Yeah. And then I wrote this song, and I had to present this holiday, and I don't remember how well it went over. Probably not too well, but it was. But to your point, that would be a good thing for us to do, is just sit down and write a letter.
Yeah, I mean,
my grandpa does that to me. My grandpa sends me letters all the time.
Yeah,
he's 94 years old. Every time I get one, I'm so grateful for it, because how many people have a 94-year-old grandpa that sends them letters?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like hey, letter from grandpa. Like everybody gather around. Like
exactly.
Let's see what's going on. It's like catching you up, because you don't talk to him every single day, but like he's catching you up on like what's most important in this amount of space that I have to give you exactly everything you need. And I want to ask you something too. Yeah. There's an art to that. I've just put on our little note card for me and you. This is ours. Penmanship idea. We'll talk about that after the recording.
Yeah. Speaking of my grandpa, this is just a nice story, but he, the beginning of June, I get a letter from him, and in the letter, or in the envelope, is an anniversary card that he on the letter, he said, I bought this for your grandmother, but I never gave it to her. Make sure you give it to your wife tomorrow. And I was like, tomorrow? And then I realized the next day was my anniversary. Wow. I was like, oh, thanks, Grandpa. Grandpa came in with the save. Dude. And then the next day I gave the card to my wife, and she said, oh, you bought this for me? And so I had to tell her the story. I was like, no, my grandpa sent it. It was for my grandmother, but she passed away and he wasn't able to give it to her. So it's yours now. And so she seemed a little torn between being upset that I didn't buy it. Like I wasn't thoughtful, and how thoughtful that was,
Yeah, it's like I love you and hate you all at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's true love, man. That's true love, man. How long have you been married?
8 years.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's just been 8 years.
I'm coming up on 7.
Yeah. So I used to hear if you can make it through the first 5 years, you're good. And then I've heard if you make it, the 7th year is usually another year of real intense struggle. And we made it through the 7th year, so I think we're good.
You want to know what year me and my wife are in?
What,
7.
You're in year 7.
And we bought a house together.
Yeah.
I quit my multiple 6-figure job and opened up 2 businesses.
Yeah.
We're in the Thunderdome.
Well, that's what it's probably a similar feeling. Obviously, it wasn't as big of a scale as all of that, but when I left the barbershop that I was working at to run my own shop, to buy my own shop, the day that I quit, Tom Petty's "Free Fallin'" was playing in my head. It's like I'm literally free falling.
Yeah,
it's all right, sink or swim. That's it. Sink or swim.
Yeah, and my dad always, I'd call my dad because he's my dad.
Yeah,
right. He's always been there for me. He's always telling me, if you ever need me, just call me. He always picks up no matter what.
Yeah.
And I call him, and I know one day he won't be there because I work with seniors all day. He's 65. I mean, statistically speaking, he's going to pass away in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about that and say that about my own father, but I call him and I'm like, hey, Dad, I got this going on in business and this going on. And it's working with like presidents of insurance companies and talking about millions of dollars in Medicare and Medicaid and all these things that he was a draftsman.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there listening to me. He's all calm. And I can just see how he's sitting. He's just happy to be, on the phone with his son. Yeah. And he goes, you pray about it? And I go, no. He goes, all right, let's pray.
Yeah.
And it's some of the best conversations I have with my dad is just calling him. It's just catching up.
Yeah.
I think it's such a, like, I always tell people, like, just, if you're ever thinking about somebody, just call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just call them right then, because you never know when you may never speak to that person again.
Yeah.
You may never, this could be the last time me and you speak. Who knows?
Yeah. My dad's the same. He's 62 now.
Yeah.
Or actually, yesterday was his birthday.
Hey,
62.
happy birthday.
Yeah. So he's the same way. I call him. I can talk to him about anything. He's never been, it's the same thing with my son. I can't be mad at my son for his failures, because he's just like me. It's like I tell my wife all the time, my son's biggest problem is that he's just like me, and so I'm compassionate to him in his even in his disobedience. I know poor kid, man. He got it from me, man.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
we got to work on it, but
but
I can't be angry because that doesn't mean I don't get angry.
Right.
But you know, it's my dad is that way with me too. He's always been real patient, kind, and I mean, he's kicked me in the butt a few times.
Yeah,
but many times, my own dad fired me like 3 or 4 times when I worked for him.
Yeah,
and I'd have to go to mom and say, "Hey, mom, I need my job back," and she'd talk to my dad, but I was a terrible employee. So
yeah, my dad, I dropped out of high school twice.
Yeah.
Right. And I dropped out of high school. My dad sat me down, just like this, across the table.
Yeah.
And my brothers are running around. It's just me and him at the kitchen table. I'll never forget it. He's like, "Why'd you quit?" I'm like, "Well, I think I know all this information." He was like, "Then why don't you just finish? If you know it all, just prove it." I was like, "Dang it, you're good. All right, I'm going back."
Yeah.
Right. I go back again. I go back and I'm like, "This isn't for me, man. Like, this is not what I want to do. This is not who I am as a person." Like, I understand math, understand all this stuff, but like, this is not fun for me. This is school. And I went, "I'm out." And then I find myself transported back to the same place. He's like, "All right, what happened?" I'm like, "It just wasn't me." He goes, "All right, rent's due on the 1st.
Yeah. That's a good dad.
Yeah, bro.
That's a good dad.
My dad's off the chain.
That's
you know
a
what I'm
good
saying?
dad.
Like, I'm so blessed to have that, like,
dude, I had
reality type person.
I had the same experience, a similar experience. One of those tough love moments with my dad. I was working for my dad, and I was terrible with my debit card, and I was, I was overdrafting like crazy.
Yep.
And so I worked for my dad, so I started asking him to pay me cash. I was probably like 18, 19 years old at the time. I was like, "Hey, can you pay me cash?" And he did it for like a week or two, and he's like, "Hey, why do you need me to pay you cash?" I was like, "Well, my checking account has a negative balance, and I need this money to pay for food and all this stuff." And my dad, he pulls his checkbook out and writes a check, and he's like, "You go deposit this right now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh." But it was that moment of that.
He was like, "Hey, I'm going to catch you up.
Yeah.
You're on your own, kid."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Here
what I
you
mean?
go. Tough. I hope you learned your lesson.
Yeah.
But we need that.
Right.
You need that. You need someone in your life that's going to hold you accountable, because that's the only way you grow.
Yeah. Yeah. And also hold you accountable, but also just be there for you. I'll gush about my dad. You gush about my dad. One time I was, this is the last time I ever did the marriage of mama.
Yeah.
Right. 16 years old. And that's why I have a scar. I would take a hit off of a doobie and my eyes would glaze over. I was like, I'm such a lightweight, right?
Yeah.
It happened, and we went to my friend's house, and I had this thing where if I stood up too quickly, you feel vertigo and you almost like fall over.
Yeah.
I would just pass out. And so I went to my friend's house, and the door was locked, and he had to like open up the door for his mom. Right, his mom had to open up the door, and she opened the door, and it was just me, and I just collapsed, and my face caught the corner of a brick. It has this, you can still kind of see it.
Yeah.
Huge gash right here. And I didn't have a cell phone. I had a beeper. I didn't want to call my dad and be like, "Hey, Dad, I was doing exactly what you told me not to do."
Yeah.
And I got this huge thing from busting his car. I woke up the next morning. The friend's mom was like, "Get out of my house." So I like walk around the neighborhood. No phone, no car, no nothing. Eventually, one of my other friends wake up. I go over to their house. I stay the night over there. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, everything's fine. Like, I'm going to be cool, all cool. Like, I can stay here again." Stay the night. The next day, he's coming to pick me up. It's like 48 hours post. I still have this huge gash, and like I'm like holding it together as a kid. He picks me up. He looks at me like this. Gets in the car. And we're driving. It's about a 45-minute drive. About 20 minutes in, we go to this stoplight. Kind of hangs to the right in Lexington, South Carolina. Lexington High School is on the right-hand side. Left-hand side is go to Lexington Middle School. I don't know exactly the road, but there's a long red light. He looks over at me like this. He goes, You smoke weed again, I'll kill you. I went, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
And he goes, "But if you ever need me, just call me. Quit being stupid."
Yeah.
And so at that moment, I was like, oh, my dad's the best, and I always know he'll be there for me. But I was also
Yeah.
like scared out of my mind that I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
Right? Never smoked again.
Yeah. When that's just love.
That's it. That's like
love.
that's true love.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
It's funny you say you dropped out of high school twice. I have a reoccurring dream. Probably sometimes it's once a month. I don't know if it's like some unresolved trauma or something, or it's just guilt. It's probably guilt. But I have this dream where, and here I am talking about my dreams, but I have this dream where I get a call from the counselors at my high school. They went through my records and they realized I just totally faked it all the way through high school. So I have to go back to high school because my diploma is invalid. And I have this dream. This is a reoccurring dream that I've had for years. And towards the end of the dream, I usually remember, no, I have the diploma. They can't take the diploma from me. And I wake up or whatever. But I think it's just it's just my guilty conscience from how terrible of a student I was in high school.
Like, did I actually get the diploma? Yeah.
Dude, I was the guy, I did just enough to get by. That's it. Not a lick more. And it's so sad because if I would have applied myself, it would have been good. But
yeah, no,
it is what it is.
Yeah, well, and if you look back to all the teachers, all the people in your life that were like, if you would just apply yourself a little bit, you're really smart.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. Like, I still play video games. I'm a huge video game nerd.
Yeah.
I'll show you after we leave here. But I have this whole gaming setup for me and my wife. I'm a huge nerd. I'd stay home because my mom and dad split. My dad would go to work. I'd like sit there and play games. I mean, like I knew how many days I could miss.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would stay up all night, play video games. Then I would go to sleep in school. And like, I didn't care.
Yeah.
You know? But like now I talk to my wife and she talks about like geography. And I'm like, how do you know all this information? She's like, high school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second. Like, what? She's like, yeah, you didn't pay attention at all, did you? And I was like, no.
Well, she knows that information because she went to high school a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a lot of the kids in high school know a lot about geography these days.
Crazy.
My uncle's actually a geography teacher up in Michigan. So his students, he's a good teacher, so I'm sure his students know. But
you know where my dad's from?
Where's that?
Michigan, Indiana area.
Michigan, Indiana.
He was born in Indiana. He lived in Michigan.
Okay. All right. What part of Michigan?
I got family in Petoskey.
Okay, I'm not.
Petoskey?
I'm
I
not
can't say it.
with that.
It's like the north side.
Oh, okay. Like the Upper Peninsula?
I think so.
Okay.
Like closer to Canada.
Yeah, that sounds like a Upper Michigan type name for a city.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. I went there once.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time up in the Detroit area. My grandpa lives outside of Detroit.
Okay.
But it's a pretty depressing place.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Detroit and where my grandpa lives, you have Grosse Pointe, which is a suburb, and you have Grosse Pointe Woods, Grosse Pointe Farms, Grosse Pointe Park, or I can't remember what they're all called. There's all these different Grosse Pointes, and they're all really nice. And then you cross one road into Detroit, and it's utter squalor. So it's like the middle class has completely been depleted in the Detroit area. It's either feast or famine. It's crazy. Like it's like beautiful shoreline, like Lakeshore Drive on the water with these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes that it goes for miles. And then you cross into Detroit and it's like it feels like you're in a war zone.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And they've gentrified different parts of it, but the problem is they'll fix up an area here and then an area here, but you still have to go through the bad areas to get to the nice areas.
Got it. How did you the location that you got now is a fantastic location, by the way. Like we're in a growing area. Like, what made you be like, okay, I like this location? There was a thought there. Well,
there really wasn't because I wanted to own a barbershop.
Got it.
I wanted to have my own spot. And
you had this like,
I wanted to be able to cut hair on my terms and listen to the music that I want to listen to and put the artwork up that I want to see.
That's right.
I want to. I worked in 3 different shops before I had my own shop, and they were all good shops in their regard. But the first shop that I worked at was a more Hispanic barbershop.
Got it.
And so they're real big on the fades and like details, and they would use the spray enhancements and all that, and play the reggaeton music all day and hip hop. And it really wasn't my scene.
Right.
But I grew up with the owner, and so I cut my teeth in that shop. And then I'd go to a more upscale shop in downtown Apex, which was, they had a bar in there, real regal, like super like posh, which was cool. I mean, I like that atmosphere. And then I worked in a shop here in Wilmington, and it was, very, very busy, but the music sucked. And the not all the music, they played some good music sometimes, but it just wasn't an atmosphere where I felt I could thrive and grow in. And so I really wanted to have my own shop to where I could set the parameters. It could be what I want it to be. And so when a shop came available for sale, actually I was cutting hair at the last place that I worked, and a customer came in and said, "Hey man, there's a shop on the edge of town that I usually get my hair cut at, and the barbers are never there. You should try to see if you can buy it." And I, through Google, Google research, I found the house number of the owner because he's 87 years old, didn't have a cell phone. And I called him and I was like, "Hey, I heard you have a barbershop that's kind of not doing so well. I'd like to talk to you and talk to you about possibly buying it." And we met, and he showed me around, and a couple weeks later I bought the shop. So to answer your question though, the location was never that wasn't my priority. Because I didn't really.
Your priority was getting to your dream of owning your own shop.
That's it. Yeah, and it just, the shop that I was blessed to buy just happened to be
one of the most established shops
exactly
in Wilmington,
and in a great location.
And in a great location. But the difference between that in most business owners that I talk to, a lot of people that I see that are business in a box type thing.
Yeah,
they wouldn't go Google search and go find that person and talk to them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do it. There's something there's a mentality, there's a growth mentality.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what's the worst that can happen? The guy hangs up on me.
Right.
Big deal. I've been hung up before. I've suffered a lot worse.
Yeah, but hey man, I see that you are exiting the game.
Yeah.
I have a dream. Would you allow me to continue to live out your dream?
Yeah.
And I'm going to start.
What's funny too? He's a really old school guy. His name is Wade Pope. And
I bet he's awesome.
He's old school, dude. Like
I love that.
Strictly utilitarian. Like the shop was just, there was no frills, no atmosphere at all. You go in there, get your hair cut, and leave. And he had these old school waiting chairs in there, and it was just nothing on the walls. No music or no atmosphere, vibes, whatever.
Military? Was he military?
He was in the military at one point. But so Wade is the kind of guy who will, when I started remodeling the shop, so I gutted the whole thing and redid everything in the shop. I said,
got it.
If I'm going to own this shop, it's got to look a lot nicer.
Got to be mine.
Yeah, it's got to be mine. And he came in one day and he said, you're not going to make any more money by doing all these upgrades, right? And I said, well, Wade, I think, with the internet, I need to have good pictures if I want to get customers in the door. It's got to look like a nice shop that people want to come to. But he was kind of discouraging me of making all these upgrades. And I don't know, maybe he just didn't want me to spend the money.
I can tell that Wade's the man.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it's not that he didn't let go yet. He was like coming to check on his thing because it was still his thing.
Absolutely.
It's still his. It's still his thing.
And he obviously loved doing it because he was 86 years old.
100%. That's it.
So, but what's funny is he's never really given me any compliments on the shop, because the shop, when I took it over and we really started, it was kind of like an old well that needed to be redug.
Right.
But once we got it dug out and that water started flowing again and business started picking back up.
Beautiful, man. It's beautiful in there.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing what's happened. But he won't say anything about the success. But I hear from other people who know him, they're like, yeah, I saw Wade at the store, and he said, man, those guys are doing such a great job at that barbershop. So he's the kind of guy.
Man, he won't say it, but he's like living vicariously almost through. He's
and I'd rather someone be like that. I'd rather
he's proud of you.
Don't say anything nice to me to my face, but if you want to talk good behind my back, go ahead. But that's better than you saying all sorts of nice things to my face and then talking about me bad about me. You know what I'm saying? So he's one of those old school guys. He's not going to tell you you're doing good.
But he's proud of you. Yeah.
But he'll tell everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's been good for him to see his shop. Because before I bought the shop, he had 2 guys working in there that I call them hobby barbers. They would just kind of come in and cut a little hair and they would leave, and they might show up, they might not. Interesting story. When I first heard about the shop, on my day off, I took a drive over to the shop. I was like, I'm gonna go check this shop out and look in the windows and see what's up. And so I get there around 8:15. They're supposed to open at 8. Well, I get there around 8:15 in the morning, and there's like 4 or 5 cars outside, and there's people standing around. So I pull up, and I'm like, hey, guys, what's going on? They're like, oh, we're just waiting for the barbershop to open. And I was like, man, this is money right here. There's 4 or 5 customers right here ready to give someone their money to cut their hair, and there's nobody at the shop.
Yep.
And I told the guys, and one of them was Bob. And Bob's a retired guy. I think he's a local, but I told him, I said, listen, man, don't give up on this shop. I'm trying to buy it. And if I'm able to buy this shop, it will be open when we say that we're open.
Yeah.
And I still cut Bob's hair every other Thursday. I've been cutting his hair for 2 years since we opened. But going there and seeing those customers waiting for the doors for someone to come and open the door
lets you know how good of an opportunity it is.
Yeah. So I was like, I gotta get into this place.
Yeah.
And so
good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one.
But
it's like they're not good for you, but like great on you.
Yeah.
And awesome, and like congratulations, because you're like, it's awesome. Like that's such a good story, dude.
Well, I think that, how I told you earlier that we struggled a lot in our marriage and financially and vocationally and all that. But I think one of the benefits of going through tough times is that when you come to an opportunity that's kind of risky,
right?
You've already been at rock bottom,
right?
So what's the worst that can happen? I've already been there.
Right.
I've already failed many, many times. What's one more failure? Sure. I might as well give it a shot.
Sure.
And so I think that's kind of my mentality. Let's give it a shot. I'm just gonna go in there and cut hair and see what happens. You know,
truthfully and transparently. And you're like, hey, I do a podcast, and I was like, oh, that'd be like really cool. My assistant that normally presses all the camera buttons, isn't here this week because he's been working with me for a month, and he's like, hey, can I have a week off? And I was like, that's kind of weird to have like a week off right before.
Yeah.
You only been here for a month.
Yeah.
I was like, for sure. But I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I want to do a podcast with him, but like, can I press all the buttons?
Yeah.
I was like, screw it. What happens if I fail? What happens if I hit the wrong button?
Yeah.
At least I had a good conversation. It's recorded, so we're good.
If for some reason the recording didn't happen,
right,
we still got a good conversation, and we still have food for thought, and we have some inspiration for
some ideas.
Absolutely. We have some inspiration for the future.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Well, dude,
sorry I was a little cumbersome, man.
You're an amazing human.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'll tell it to your face. I'm not going to tell you, not going to say something later behind your back, right? I love your shop. I love everything about it. I don't think you should change much, but change exactly what you want because it's your thing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like, congratulations on that. It's like, it's inspiring to me because I'm that new business owner.
Yeah,
but you're going in the right direction. Any way I can help you, man, just give me a call.
Awesome.
Seriously.
Yeah, we'll talk, man. For sure. I appreciate you, Matt.